Good morning. I'm Lauren Dake. I'm a reporter with the Columbian. Welcome to the breakout session on prospects for large employers supported by the management group. Leading today's discussion is Moderator Jeanne Bennett, who is the Executive Director of the Southwest Washington Workforce Development Council.
Thank you, Lauren. Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much for coming to this session, which is about large businesses and what they can expect in the next year. So we're very fortunate to have four wonderful folks with us today to talk about different sectors, including healthcare, manufacturing, and technological advances or information technology. So I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves and give you a little bit about their background before we launch into a longer section with each of them. So we'll start with John down on the end, John Rudi.
Thanks. My name is John Rudi. I'm the president and owner of Thompson Metal Fab. I grew up in Oregon, in Lake Oswego, town about, most of you know, probably about 8 miles outside of downtown Portland. Went to high school there. Went away to school, graduated with a BA in economics from UCLA, and then went in, I was in ROTC, so I went into the Army for the next 6 years, where I flew helicopters and was a maintenance test pilot for them, both in Central and South America and the Southern U.S. Came back after that, after the 6 years, and joined our family firm at the time, Thompson Metal Fab, and started out there back in the shop where I'd worked in college, in between summers in college, and eventually took over about 3 years later. And I've been working at Thompson Metal Fab and growing that and working with the great team we have there ever since. Thompson Metal Fab has been around since 1937, and we're proud to be a member of the community.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Ben?
Good morning. My name is Ben Bagherpour. I'm a VP of Operation for SEH America. SEH America is a silicon manufacturer in Vancouver, Washington. We've been here since in operation since 1981. And so I've been in this community for about 40 years. I lived and worked in this community. And I have a bachelor degree in electrical engineering, a master degree in mechanical engineering. I worked for SEH for about over 31 years. So during my working at SEH, I've been in operation, maintenance facilities. I've done all kinds of whatever needs to be done. So today, when we get to my conversation here, is regarding education, how important it is for us to have an educated workforce for our manufacturing in our community. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me this morning. My name is Bryce Helgerson, and I am the Chief Administrative Officer at Legacy Salmon Creek Medical Center. Originally from Iowa, grew up in the Midwest in a little town of 1,000 people, and knew very quickly that I wanted to get out of there. But it was great to be from there, but came out to the West Coast after finishing a graduate degree at Washington University in St. Louis, and have been with Legacy Health for about 10 years, serving as the Chief Administrative Officer for our hospital in Gresham. And then after that, the VP of Operations at Emmanuel and Randall Children's Hospital, and now the great privilege to be here in Vancouver, living and working, and proud to be here this morning to address you as well. Thank you.
Bryce, I guess that makes you from the other America.
Yes.
My name is Jason Koenders. I'm the Senior Vice President of Engineering and Network Planning for Integra. I'm also from the other America. I was born and raised in South Dakota, but we lived in Iowa for 3 years as I graduated high school there. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration. I was in the military for 4 years in the Army. And I've been with Integra for about 15 years. I took a couple-year hiatus where I owned a communications company in Las Vegas, Nevada. That was an interesting experience, but been Senior Vice President of Engineering for about 2.5, 3 years now.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to start with John on the far end and just continue the same way we just did, okay, and let John talk for just a little while about his business and what he sees as important in our area.
Sure. Okay. Well, Thompson Metal Fab is a fabricator of large infrastructure projects and markets throughout the western United States and the Pacific Rim. So our regions really are the western United States, Alaska. We have projects in Antarctica and also on the east coast of Russia. My wife thought I should bring up a few of those so you get an idea of what we do. Most of the large oil rigs that operate on the North Slope are very specialized rigs for operating in -50 conditions, and a third of those are either built or remanufactured here at Thompson Metal Fab, and most people don't realize that. We also have oil rigs that we've worked on operating on the east coast of Russia with Exxon, one of which just a few years ago set the world record for the deepest hole. We also have cold temperature infrastructure down at the South Pole. We're working with the National Science Foundation to support the telescope that recently helped prove the existence of the Big Bang Theory, I guess. That's a little over my head, but it is down there, and we're real proud of the work that the guys do there. Our business was started in 1937. We moved to Vancouver in 1975. We're located at the original Kaiser Shipyards in Columbia Business Center. We currently have over about 300 employees, and our major products really are manufacture of bridges, oil rigs, associated products for oil and gas. We do a lot of work for the Corps of Engineers on the Columbia River for a lot of the navlock gates. The Dalles Dam recently was one of them. We also have some local projects here regionally. The OHSU tram was a project we built with Kiewit and Doppelmayr. Also, the St. John's overpass on SR 500, we worked with Tapani, if I'm pronouncing that right. And we're currently working on erecting the Selwood Bridge. We're doing the steel that's just been delivered there by river, and will be put up over the next several months. Like any large manufacturing business, Team F requires an efficient and competitive transportation system. Transportation access is not only critical to move our products, but it allows efficient access by our workforce and the thousands of suppliers who support us. Recently, the Vancouver City Council passed a measure, and when I say recently, this has been over a month ago, I guess, for businesses trying to attract businesses with over 200 employees to the city. While I applaud the gesture, I think what we really need is a renewed commitment to transportation in Southwest Washington to attract business. And not only attract business, but help the businesses that are here. I mean, I think a lot of our focus sometimes is, well, we got to bring more business in, but I like programs that not only will attract business, but help the ones that are here. I mean, you got to help your own house first, right? We need to improve the highway gridlock on I-5, and probably no mystery why I'm talking about it, the I-5 bridge. That's where we need to start. Bridge congestion is arguably the #1 impediment to business growth in Clark County and the surrounding counties. And I would also argue it's the #1 reason many businesses will not consider Vancouver as a relocation option. I talked to many CEOs who admire Washington's favorable tax structure, the available land, the access to city government. You can get things done here. But when you ask them why they don't have a business in Vancouver, their answer is almost always the same. The bridge is constrictive to traffic, and it hurts their ability to attract workers and promote their commerce. And they will never realistically consider placing operations here in Vancouver until the I-5 traffic system changes. Vancouver has the luxury of being a separate community with a small town feel adjacent to a metropolitan area. So what that means is we have a small town, or where I guess I'm going with that is we have a small town and we have the luxury of being next to a major metropolitan area, which allows us to tap those markets and tap those resources, yet insulate us from having to be part of it. I guess similar to what Mr. Fisher was saying earlier. The city centers are only 9 miles apart, but it frequently takes over an hour to negotiate the distance. Portland is a major source of commerce for Vancouver with a population to drive business and a workforce to support it. The flow of people, goods, and services through the I-5 corridor is critical to Vancouver, not to mention the entire West Coast. Improved transportation access to Portland will not only attract new business, it will allow existing business in Vancouver and Clark County to grow. That means money for schools, community services, and reduced pressure for new taxes. City and county and political leaders need to work with the citizens and the business community of Southwest Washington to make transportation a priority in Olympia. A path to replacing the I-5 bridge needs to be included, and I say path, it doesn't mean that it has to be fully funded, but a path needs to be included to address this transportation need. Southwest Washington residents and businesses cannot afford to wait 10 years. A recent editorial in the Columbian stated the transportation package being submitted to the legislature includes a meager 0.34% of the funds going to Southwest Washington. And I think since I wrote this originally, I believe that's even zero now. I think didn't the governor came out and said, you can go scrum for the discretionary funds. That's not a position we want to be in with, what, 9% of the state right here. So no funds are going for the bridge. No funds to address the congestion on the I-5. Residents should be extremely concerned, and what's equally shocking is that some lawmakers actually appear proud that they scuttled any serious transportation improvement that happened in Southwest Washington. Serious commitment to jobs in our community begins with a serious commitment to transportation. If you build it, they will come. And if you manage it, you can keep the same small town feel that we have now, but tap the resources of a larger community next door to our advantage. Unless we work together, we'll never be heard in Olympia, and we'll always be a distant footnote because we just do not have the horsepower up there unless we stand united. So that's kind of my take.
Thank you, John. So I just want to mention that I have a couple of questions for each of the panelists, but we'll also open it up to the audience for questions. So keep track, and I'll come back to you at some point here in the near future. Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you, Jeanne. As I mentioned, I work for SEH America. SEH America is silicon manufacturing, and silicon is the base material for all the IC industries. I won't get to that as much, but SEH is one of the many high-tech companies in Vancouver and Clark County. And where SEH America is the only 300-millimeter wafer manufacturer in the United States. We produce 6-inch, 8-inch, and 12-inch wafer here in Vancouver. In our Vancouver site, we have about 865 employees. And out of that 865, about under 600, just about under 600 are high school graduates. And those high school graduates are the main force behind our operations. They're the one that run the machines. They're the one that make the decisions for our product. So that's very important. I will come to that. Today I want to talk about two items. One is that the 21st century skills that everybody talks about and the needs, why it's so important for businesses and education to get together and make sure that we have the right skill workforce for our community so our community can expand and grow. First, about manufacturing. Manufacturing dynamics have changed over the course of the last few decades, much different than the 70s and the 80s. The global economy, the competition from every corner of the globe have changed the rules. And these rules are not necessarily fair or equal, but they are the rules that all of us have to work under. So as a result of that, what that means is that any manufacturer in any across the globe that has the lowest manufacturing cost, highest quality, shortest cycle time will survive, and the others will not. That could be an internal competition as well as external competition. So some of the other things that has changed about manufacturing. There are a lot more automation in the manufacturing nowadays than in the past. The equipments are bigger, more expensive, more sophisticated. As a result, it requires a more educated, more knowledgeable, more flexible, more agile workforce to be able to run those pieces of equipment at a higher efficiency. So let's talk about the 21st centuries that everybody talks about is a buzzword out there. So we can break down to three categories: hard skills, soft skills, and technical skills. I'll give you some of the examples. These are not necessarily all of them, but some of the examples that goes under each category. Under hard skills, we can talk about basic math, basic chemistry, basic statistics, understanding data and tables and charts, and be able to read and understand procedures. Under soft skills, we talk about items like critical thinking, problem solving, interpersonal communication, teamwork, and work ethics. Under other technical skills, such as quick learning, multitasking, and cross-training. Those are the skills that any high school students coming out of the high school, having those skills, be able to find good paying jobs in the local economy and to contribute to our basically our local economy. Unfortunately, many companies are basically reporting that they still cannot find the workforce that they need with the skills that they need. According to the State of Washington Education Research and Data Center, in Clark County alone, in high school in Clark County, 23% of the students do not finish high school. 31% enter the workforce after high school, and 46% go to a 2-year or 4-year programs. According to the McKinsey Global Institute study, the global economy is facing shortage of high-skilled workforce where there are surplus of low-skilled workers. 60% of the U.S. employers say that it's difficult to find qualified workers to fill their open position. So what that means is that higher unemployment numbers, supply of the workforce available does not necessarily equal to what the employers need. My message here today is very simple, that students need to have skills and knowledge to make good choices. We as a community need to work together, ensure that high school students have the variety of options, such as we need to create more opportunities for kids to learn hands-on through work-based learning, project-based learning, coaching and mentoring, and internship. We need to improve and expand STEM classes and opportunities for more students, not only for the top-tier students. And we in the private sector and businesses need to get involved and work with the education side and our community partners to define these gaps and be able to close these gaps. Investment in a better education is an investment in a healthy economy for our community through economic expansion, decreased unemployment, increased per capita income, increased tax base, and decrease in uninsured citizen. As the saying goes, education is the wing on which opportunity and dreams fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Bryce?
Well, I won't spend a lot of time talking about who we are. Hopefully, I always say if you come to visit us, thank you for trusting us with your health care, but I'm sorry if you've had to come to the hospital. But really what I wanted to talk about today a little bit was managing for quality in a growing environment. So we employ about 2,000 employees at Legacy Salmon Creek Medical Center, and really as a health system based in this area in the metro region, we have employees going back and forth across the bridge, and patients really going back and forth across the bridge too. So all of these, of course with education, are very important to our health system. But what I want to talk about a little bit today is some of the changes influencing healthcare right now, and some of the things that we're doing to mitigate this very chaotic environment. So healthcare reform, the Accountable Care Act, the Affordable Care Act, whatever you want to call it, really has thrown a wrench in the historical way in which we provided care. And my argument here today is that that's maybe not a bad thing, and that we need to start to think differently about how we provide that care, and really who's at the center of where we're headed in terms of overall provision of health care. So I want to talk today a little bit of maybe 6 areas that are driving that change. The first is changing utilization patterns. So historically what's been driving inpatient care in terms of our business model has been the per clicks or the CT scans or inpatient surgery coming to the hospital as a destination. And what we're seeing is that utilization is changing. And it's going to continue to change at a very rapid rate. And we're seeing that within our own medical center. We've been blessed with a really talented local group of physicians who are very educated, cutting edge. In fact, is an example of that changing utilization is we recently did an inpatient knee total joint. The patient went home the same day. So these are continuing to emerge and will continue to, and one might argue, does that really need to happen within the 4 walls of an inpatient medical facility, or can it start to happen somewhere else? So as I talk a little bit, I think you'll hear some of the economic drivers that may be changing in our own local environment. The second is technology disruption. We at Legacy and at Salmon Creek are one of only 3 hospitals within the state of Washington to reach the highest level of technology integration within our health system. So if you're seen in one of our clinics, we have all the information that would have been collected in that clinic available to our emergency department physician through an electronic record. We can integrate with Kaiser anywhere on the West Coast. We can actually tap into any hospital. If you've been seen at a hospital that has our same record system, which is called Epic, based out of Madison, Wisconsin, we can see that information within our ED. And so what that does is it, again, changes utilization. So if you've had lab tests done somewhere else, we don't have to duplicate the lab test. We can see your CT scan from another facility within our own computer system. But That's all great, but what it's doing is driving data. So we're pouring in all this data within our environment, creating big data challenges, and we're not quite sure what to do with it yet. And so that's really going to start to change over time. I think it's going to allow people to have individual access to their health record, which is great. We already have that. But I think that based on that data, you'll start to see changes take place within the environment, more mobile type apps and things that are going to lead to hopefully healthier communities and push again that care outside the hospital. We're also seeing new payment methodologies and a push for transparency. So what we're seeing now in terms of that change is moving from a historical volume incentive. So in hospitals, we're incented to, again, that per click, more CT scans, more lab tests, more inpatient admissions. We're moving to more of a value stream proposal and putting the patient at the center. So what is the patient willing to pay for, or what are they interested in? We're more interested in the patient's perception of that care. So historically, again, patients show up to a hospital, we admit you, we do a lot of things to you, but we're starting really as an organization, I'll talk a little bit more about that, is what is most value to the patient? What can we eliminate that's not in that value stream? We also have new competition that I think is going to drive some of the economics of healthcare within this area, particularly as we move very quickly into new models. What we're seeing now is more for-profit centers coming into a historically not-for-profit world. So an example of that right now is behavioral health, which in all honesty is a complete mess within within the United States. It's not just here. We need to focus more on this patient population. The for-profit companies have identified this, and there are 2 or 3 certificate of need applications within the state of Washington for Clark County to come in and build for-profit behavioral health centers. What those centers will start to do is take some of that the profitable business from health centers and leave us with potentially a population that's not sustainable for our organizations. However, we can work with them to develop centers that meet both the needs of all of our organizations and really meet the community need. And frankly, that's where our most interest is. We also are seeing Walgreens, Rite Aid, Walmart has said that they will be the #1 provider of healthcare in the country. Walgreens alone has over 100 million subscribers to their loyalty program. Do you know what they know about you? Your prescribing habits, your prescriptions that you take, what kind of greeting cards you buy. And they know a lot about you based on that loyalty program. They will start to take that information and build their own health centers in their retail clinics, which will, again, change the way in which healthcare is provided and push out into the community. We're also seeing the advanced science of medicine change, engagement and activation. So no longer will you need 10 tubes of blood and an exercise stress test to tell you have a cardiac problem. You could probably get your finger pricked, or you may be able to tell on your phone in a couple of years by holding up to your forehead or your retina that you have a particular health problem. And so we're also battling with that. But all this leads to what I want to talk a little bit about, which is all the changes that are taking place, how it's leading to organizational change for us, and what those in manufacturing and other business have known for years is finally becoming a stark reality to us, and that is that we need to think differently. So it struck me when I served legacy in building our Randall Children's Hospital in Portland, the construction teams that got together every morning and did a bend and flex exercise and talked about the safety issues of the day. We're erecting the crane today. There's high winds today. Here's what you can expect and what you might see in the next 24 hours around this construction site. Well, in healthcare, we don't do that. We send nurses in, do a one-on-one communication. They go out and they take care of their 4 to 5 patients that they have on any unit, really have no sense of what's going on across the health system or hospital. Well, we started to change that and implementing some what we consider new ideas, but taken from manufacturing, and doing a stand-up huddle every morning to get everybody on the same page. We are having nurses meet with the patient in the room and doing a one-on-one handoff. So we change shift every 12 hours at 7 a.m. The nurses are involving the patient in that activity. knowing that if we educate the patient on their condition, tell them what to expect for the day, they probably have a better understanding. They're going to feel better about their health, become more active, and frankly, it's safer for our staff because they know what happened overnight. We also do an 11 a.m. stand-up huddles with our management team, similar to that huddle that is done on a construction site. 15 minutes where we stand up in our facilities room and we talk about safety issues that happened within the previous day, safety issues that might happen today. Are we doing an unusual procedure that maybe we don't normally do? Do we have something that the team needs to jump on in order to address? And so we're finding that is leading to a safer environment. And really we're starting to focus on these lean principles in the organization to get back to that value proposition to the patient. What are you interested in paying for and what is considered waste? An example of waste might be waiting. How can we reduce waiting time within our organization? So all of these are leading to rapid change within the healthcare environment. It's driving the economy, I believe, of health environment. And the key is that we, as an organization, have to continue to change. Patients expect more, and we need to get the patient back at the center of everything that we do. And we're implementing a lot of these principles within our organization so that we can do just that.
Thank you, Bryce. Jason.
So as I mentioned, I work for Integra. We're a data communications provider, regional in about 11 states. We moved recently last May from Portland Lloyd Center to Vancouver Fisher's Landing area. I first want to say thanks to the businesses. I don't know if there's any in here that participated. They did a great job of welcoming us to the community, and all the employees felt much better in our move and are glad with the new facilities that we have out there, the old HP campus in Fisher's Landing. So today I'm going to talk about advances in technology, how they can help your business not only improve service, but reduce costs and better serve your customers. There's three main areas I'm going to focus on. What are we seeing changing in the enterprise landscape today? What technology do we see coming in 2015? And then what can you do about it? How can you implement it, or what should you be doing about it? So in the enterprise landscape today, we see, and it's been happening over years, we see enterprises moving towards the cloud. Why are they moving towards the cloud? They're moving towards the cloud so that they can reduce CapEx, so they can focus their CapEx dollars in areas of the business that are actually producing an ROI in their business. With the cloud, you pay as you grow. So if you need to burst bandwidth on the weekend, or if you need to burst bandwidth on the holidays, resources, CPU resources, that can happen. It's easily enabled. It's accessible, always reliable. Your customers can access that cloud environment and those resources appropriately. And for some businesses, it's outsourced, right? It's not their core function to work on that hardware or those applications. It's easy they would much rather invest those resources in things that are going to produce them revenue and increase their margins. Another change that we're seeing in the enterprise landscape is SaaS continues to gain market share, so software as a service. Customers are moving towards Salesforce.com for their CRM. They're moving to Oracle for their financials, ServiceNow for trouble reporting. So they continue to outsource instead of having applications loaded in their facility. And then the third thing is security is a priority. That's right, that four-letter word that none of us want to be on the news, the 5 o'clock news, talking about a breach that we had in our business. Our customers are focused on security. According to PayMetric, since June, according to PayMetric in June of 2014, ever since the Target breach, there's been about one major breach a month. Since then, companies such as Michaels, Sally Beauty Supply, Neiman Marcus, eBay, and P.F. Chang's have all experienced issues. So it's something that if you're not talking about in your business, if you're not getting external audits to penetration test your environment, is something that you should be doing. And then disaster recovery. Linked to security, but disaster recovery can decrease your revenue as a business, and is highly important to make sure you have a recovery solution. You want to make sure your customers can purchase from you at all times, that they can reach you and aren't going to your competition. So in 2015, some of the changes in technology that we're seeing from a business perspective, and I'm in the data and communications business, so we deal in acronyms and are acronym heavy, but software-defined networks. This is the ability for the controller to be removed from the hardware, placed in an application, so it orchestrates your data flow across your network. It orchestrates the hardware to enable your bandwidth on demand and optimize for high bandwidth solutions for your environment. Then there's network functions virtualization that really is going to take your smartphone and allow your enterprise network to act like your smartphone, where you're purchasing applications or you're buying applications, getting applications on demand. It's going to accelerate the speed to market. It's going to enable service providers to go from turning on your service anywhere from 5 to 30 days to instantaneous, right? That's something that service providers across the board are working with our vendors to provide on-demand services for our customers. We're seeing the Internet of Things. Gartner's definition of the Internet of Things is a network of physical objects that contain embedded technology to communicate and sense or interact their internal statuses or external environments. Think of your refrigerator, who's smart enough to know that there's milk in there and when the milk's gone, and to either communicate that to you or to your grocery store to get an order coming to your house for milk. Customer analytics, that same fridge, right? Communicating to your doctor or your nutritionist about what you're eating or drinking, right? The Internet of Things is wearables, it's your car, it's everything that we do. And Bryce referred to data analytics. Everything that we're talking about here, from the technology to the applications, it produces analytics that is that big data. We're still learning what to do with that data, but the question for all of us is to ask bigger questions, and we'll come up with better answers and bigger answers and solve more problems. And then I would be doing my company a disservice if I didn't talk about network services, about the underlying technology that it's going to take to run all of this. And that's the Ethernet technology. That's the fiber to more and more buildings. As we build, you're going to need the infrastructure in order to run these applications. So as business leaders in the community, what can we do about it? How are you going to use it? Are you going to use it well? As business leaders, we all need to be technology experts. I'm not saying you need to be subject matter experts like your IT organization. That's what they're there for. But you need to understand the technology, and you need to be able to implement the technology that's going to be most beneficial for your business. It's not just IT that should be technology. It should be throughout the business, whether it's the chief operating officer, chief executive officer, or other leadership within the business. This technology is going to enable us to do more. It's going to enable you to be more agile for your customers, to solve their service issues, to increase your revenue as we go, and that helps all of Clark County. There's a movement in technology. It's called DevOps. It's focused on being more agile for the business, producing more value for the business in a faster time frame. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm feeling competitive with the neighbors next door, so let's give them a round of applause. So that's these last two presentations where we're talking about technology, and I'm thinking about my smartphone sending something to the grocery store to order milk for me, or to hold it up to my eye to diagnose my heart disease, makes me a little worried, And I think about how quickly technology advances, and I wonder, Jason, specifically, how can businesses keep up with this rapidly changing technology, and how do they continue to choose the most effective strategies for increasing their technology, keeping up with it, and making the best investment so that it has the longest shelf life?
Well, I think what I tried to focus on, right, is you as leaders in your business need to understand the technology. And you need to prioritize. There's every project a business has goes back to IT. IT is involved in one way or another. So you need to focus on the top 2 or 3 projects within your business that are going to either improve your customer service, are going to drive revenue, or reduce your costs. If it's not doing one of those things, right, if there's no value to the business, then you shouldn't focus on it, right? You should set it to the side, and it might be nice to have. It might be something with your warehousing that it's not going to produce a real ROI for the business. So my answer to that would be you should focus as a business. You should really understand what that project's going to do, what it's going to take to implement, and focus on those technologies.
Great. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Okay. All right. So I work in workforce development. So one of my big concerns is how do we make sure that we have a very educated workforce. And all of the folks really, there was a through line here in workforce development. So I'm going to start with Ben, though, because Ben serves on the Workforce Development Council, as do a couple of other people in the room here who will raise their hands in the back of the room. And John actually has a staff person who serves on our council as well. So workforce development is pretty critical, and you've been a vocal advocate for businesses getting more involved with schools to ensure that young people have the skills that they need as they come out. And when you talked about hard skills, soft skills, and technology skills or technical skills, those things really are high school related. We need young people to come out of high school with those skills. So thinking about that, how can we have more businesses engaging with high school? And what would be the process for that? So that's question one. And then question two is about teachers, but I'll ask you that in a second.
Businesses are busy basically taking care of their needs, their daily challenges, internally and globally to be able to compete and survive. That's the nature of the business. And most businesses outside of the very, very big, huge corporations do not have the resources, the money, or the time to get involved in other activities that they don't see the short benefit in it. So, but at the same time, businesses do get locally here and anywhere else, they get approached by organizations to donate money, time, and resources, and most do. But one thing that business does not see is, most of the time, is that the connections and basically all these requests and how they interact and related together, and what is it going to get us. So if we can do a better job communicating with business about that short-term and long-term mission, I think the more businesses will be willing to get involved. Another thing that we need to do with businesses is that business basically looks at the bottom line, and they will get involved in activities that helps them short-term and long-term. So as I said, the dealing with the challenges, which is one of them, is the skills that the workforce has and the gaps that they have between what they need and they don't have. If we approach from that angle and say that we are here to help you to define those gaps, and we're going to get the education involved to be able to help you to build those skill gaps that you currently need. If it's a welder, machine operator, or a technician, whatever that would be, is that then they will be lessened more, they will get involved more. Not everybody can participate in an internship program, but they can start small and build on it. I think it is very, very important for businesses to do get involved, but we as a community have to do a better job to define what we're talking about, what we're going to be doing for businesses to participate more.
Thank you. So we heard Ken Fisher talking a little bit about Camas schools in particular and their high quality and the integration of their teachers into the community. And I know that, Ben, you also have worked with a lot of teachers. And so what is it about teachers or teaching that needs to change in order to help our students be more productive coming right out of high school, more prepared?
Very good question. In my opinion, my personal opinion from my experience, teachers have a very, very significant influence on a student's career path selection. So, but unfortunately, not necessarily all, but majority of the teachers do not understand the business side, the needs of the business, what business is all about. So if we can do things to change things is required, and make sure that the teachers get involved in the private sector, understand the business needs, and as they understand the business needs and the skill requirement, they'll be able to coach the students better as far as this is the path you need to go through, and these are the classes that you need to take, and other activities that you need to do to be able to fill those jobs of the future. That is number one. And the second thing I think is very important for us to do as a community is that right now, in my opinion, the K-5, which is the basic foundation for building the STEM for the future, is not strong enough. So what we need to do is that we need to improve the teachers' knowledge and training on the STEM activities, the STEM classes and training, so they can build that foundation so the high school gets a better population of the kids that are coming through from the K-5 and middle school that are STEM oriented and have the STEM knowledge.
Thank you. So just so you know, we're all working on that together. The schools have embraced this idea that teachers should have more education around what industry needs. And we've had great support from our schools, and we're very lucky to have the leadership we have in our local school districts. So John, let's talk a little bit more about transportation. So under the best case scenario, resolving that problem that we have with our I-5 bridge is more than a decade away. Under the best case, it's more than a decade away. So what strategies are you employing now to improve or to move your product, and what can be done in the meantime to help companies such as yours that have to get across that bridge to be able to move their product faster and better?
Well, in the short run, until the bridge problem's solved, and hopefully it's not 10 years, but we'll see. I think in the short term, we focus a lot of our supplier work and our supplier deliveries and things around doing it in the first half of the day before the traffic gets to be a barrier, which it seems to be starting around 1:30, 2 o'clock, depending on what the day is. Friday, I guess it probably starts right after lunch in some cases, as we all know. We're making adjustments there or trying to use the East County side. We do a lot more action on shipping with rail, and also a lot more water shipment with us is a real driver in it and an important market differentiator for us. So, of course, we focus on a lot of projects that require delivery by water. But I think as a community, one of the things that we should be looking at are similar initiatives to what's going on with the Southwest Washington Transportation Corridor Alliance to try to do, say, a public-private, I'm going to say partnership might not be the right term for it, but some coordinated effort, say with BNSF or some of the railroads, to improve intersections that or transportation overlaps where both public money, where it's an improvement to say the public roads where they intersect with the railroad, and the railroad can put in money too, so we can get some of the funds both from the private side that need to be done and also on the public side, and start preparing, I guess, if you will, the corridor for an eventual improvement of the I-5 bridge. And I think those, if we can't seem to come to terms with the bigger picture right now and garnering the funding that we need to tackle the main bridge, what seems plausible to me is we better start preparing for that eventual day when that will come, and then we'll be ready for it with some of the arterials and some of the buildup on some of the other off-ramps and things like that. Some similar along the lines what you're seeing up by Legacy and some of those other areas, 134th, I think. Yeah. But that's what I think we can do. If that's all we have to work with from a funding perspective, then I think that focus should be in preparation for the eventual major improvement that has to happen on I-5. I'll throw this in too, is that I think looking at a bridge on the other part of the county is just a distraction. And the reality is if you separated those two apart, both bridges were the same price. The problem is that when you looked at the whole CRC project, you have to pick up all those feeder routes and all the on-ramps and all the off-ramps and all the traffic corridor improvements that go with it. When they presented the East County bridge, they just looked at the bridge. And so if you just want to do apples to apples and you put that bridge against the original CRC design, they were basically the same price. But what the East County bridge didn't take into account is how are you going to tie that in? And one, is there a traffic problem there? But how you have to take into account the extra $1.5 billion or $2 billion worth of infrastructure is going to take to tie the rest of that in. If that's an important priority, then that's how they should be looking at the whole thing. But I wanted to throw that out there because it was an important thing. I want to add one thing too to the education. I think the schools are doing that movement is really doing a great job, at least from the manufacturing standpoint too. Fort Vancouver High School has a welding program. Of course, those programs are near and dear to our heart, but also Clark College. I think we as businesses need to do a better job. I think telecommunications and healthcare do a great job of saying this is who we are, this is what we do, and these are your career opportunities. In manufacturing, as Ben said, we're more focused on less interaction with people and more on our business and our product. And we need to do a better job of spreading the word on, hey, these are great career path opportunities for kids to take. And we need to do a better job getting out there and interfacing early on so that we can show them down the road this is a great deal. And in 4 years, you can be a very accomplished journeyman welder making over $50,000 in base salary and another $25,000 on top of that in benefits. I mean, that's a great opportunity to start with, and then you have your whole life ahead of you to improve upon that. So we need to do a better job of getting out there and letting people know that these are great jobs and great opportunities.
Great. That answers another question I was going to ask, so thank you. Okay, so Bryce, I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball.
Okay.
So what do you think the needs of hospitals are going to be in the near future? What's coming for Southwest Washington in terms of new general hospitals, specialty hospitals, any of that kind of additional services besides Walgreens and Walmart?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball, but my best guess, I think, relates to a lot of what I was talking about earlier, and it's really being driven by multiple forces. And I think what you're going to see is less of this bricks and mortar expansion within our hospitals. We definitely know that there are enough people here to support the hospitals that we have. But I think that what you're going to see is that we're going to move into changing models. So there's going to be increased competition from outside agencies that are going to come in and try to take some of that business that has historically been done on hospital campuses. I think that there's going to be an increased shift to an outpatient setting. And you're already seeing that in this area with the advent of urgent care. Our own legacy health organization has partnered with a company called GoHealth to move into the urgent care market. So the Zoom cares are going to continue to proliferate, and everybody's going to try and jump on that bandwagon. I really do think, not to mention the Walgreens again, but the Walgreens and the Rite Aids are really something to watch coming up. But there's still going to be a need for the inpatient hospital. People are getting older. The life expectancy is going to continue to drive up. One thing we're really focused on with our organization is palliative care. So how long should people be living? What conversations need to happen outside the hospital before you hit that critical moment? And decisions need to be made. When can you start to do that in a community-based setting and a private conversation with your doctor? But I say stay tuned to the economics of this are going to be huge. I think you're just going to see more and more health organizations come into the community looking for real estate. And not that our hospital campuses won't grow, but I think you're really going to see it start to happen on the outside.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yes, Sandra.
Just to clarify, so I understand more, are you suggesting that there will be more clinics that do one special operation that you can go in and leave in a day rather than go to the hospital to do it? Is that what you're talking about?
I think
Bryce, will you repeat that question, please?
so. The question was, will there be more clinics that are specialized in procedures in the community? What I think, generally what I'm referring to is taking care of people and keeping them healthy in the community. So that means primary care, more access to urgent care, and those types of things. And so really from our perspective, the historical payment model has been come into the hospital, we get a certain payment for taking care of you in the hospital-based setting. Where we're moving to in population-based health is, here's a zip code. Here's a pot of money. How are you going to take care of people? So the cheapest and best way to do that is to take care of people in the community and keep them healthy. Incentivize, pay for the Fitbit, and monitor it and say, you could have run a few more miles today. You could have walked a little bit more. And it's getting to this data integration too. This Fitbit thing, I don't personally have one, but I see after the holidays now, everybody has one. They're tracking you. They're keeping this information, and it's this big data thing. What are we going to do with all that? So I think it's very fascinating. I think it's going to be driving out the community.
Yes.
And also from an ethics perspective, is it the role of the insurer and payer to be monitoring, or is that the relationship between the, physician and the patient, as we start looking at big data, how does the hospital fit into that particularly, as the hospital models have always been, they have loss leaders, in order to cover, areas of major profit. And when you see like the Walgreens and Walmart chipping away at cherry picking all of those little bits and pieces, how does a hospital survive in that kind of climate when, they lose their ability to break even? How do you see that, kind of working in? Because like I said, data is everything, and I know that the future of private health information is becoming more valuable than that of Social Security numbers, and for these reasons.
Yeah, I think you'll see.
Going to sell it.
Yeah, I think based on that, you'll see more consolidation. So we've seen it in this market already with Peace Health. You're seeing it all over the state of Washington. I've never seen a state that has in 2 to 3 years, small private hospitals really don't exist anymore. There's a handful of them. Most of them are critical access hospitals, less than 25 beds, which are incented by the federal government. They get fee-for-service payment. So they're still around. If the federal government cuts that payment, they're going to be looking for a partner. So people are just starting to create these mega organizations, and I think you'll see that continue to happen as the edges are chipped away at.
Right. Councilman Berkman, did you have a question?
Back to the topic of education. The State of the Country, the State of the Union this week, President Obama made a recommendation to provide community college free assessment. What's your reaction to that?
My personal opinion on that one is I think it's a very good idea. So, but the question is that the actual the devil's in the details. So on that. So how are you going to pay for it, and what is kids going to do after college? If they're going to get a 2-year degrees that really doesn't benefit the community or the any other businesses, then basically we're wasting our money. So it has to be specific. It has to be targeted. But I think overall is a good idea because currently the high school education alone is not sufficient for to compete globally with the especially manufacturing what we're dealing with right now.
Question for John. If we kind of looked at the history of development of the area, clearly our proximity to the river and its commerce, as well as the sort of fantastic rail that had its early origins here. I guess, but for those things, there might not have been a Vancouver or a Portland. Well, my question is, for a business like yours, proximity to rail and robustness of rail, shipping, air, and the rest of it, do you think that the pressure for urbanization, development of the Columbia waterfront, that there's a future for companies like yours here, or do you feel that there's more attention has to be paid for that? In other words, if we're going to build this robustness, do we still have the land that you need to have a business like yours? Will it be attractive for others like you, or will we sort of submerge and go all urban?
Well, I think one, we're fortunate to be at Columbia Business Center. It is a unique spot. There's no question we're under a lot of pressure there from urbanization. We're surrounded on all sides. But beyond that island there of CBC, I think you have to look to the port. The port has a lot of developable land that they haven't even touched yet. I think they've made a lot of progress. I'm not an expert on it, but I think in just developing light manufacturing available land as well. That I think gets back to a point that somebody made before, this clustering. That was one of the things that we had talked about again with CRC was. Where are you looking at? What do you want to form like a cluster? And then once you get some anchor tenants in these other areas, you'll start to get some of the feeder businesses that go off them that that support them as well. And I think there's a lot of land there, and certainly in Ridgefield and some of the other places up north. But water access is going to be important, and I think you have to look to the port to support that. But there still is a lot of area there to build and continue to grow your industrial or your manufacturing base. But to do that, you're going to have to continue to strengthen your roads and rail access. So we're in a unique spot here with the Columbia River, and there's a lot of opportunity there still.
Mr. Barnes.
Yeah, a question for John, and maybe for us, the panel members that use transportation. If the I-5 bridges were repaired or completely did away with and built like they proposed for the CRC, what percentage of economic development or better jobs on the Washington side of the road would that create if the bridge was completed and as designed over the last 15 to 18 years?
I guess I can start. Since I brought up all this, it's always a hot topic. I knew it would be. Well, I mean, my personal opinion is obviously that I think if you create an easier access for both your suppliers and for workers to cross both, it goes both ways as well. You're going to encourage businesses to relocate here. I mean, I think there's no question about that. If you build a great infrastructure and great bones, then you're going to have companies that want to come in and bolt onto that. So if you make it easy for them to draw a workforce and easy for their suppliers to feed them, then you're going to have businesses that want to come here, want to locate here, want to spend the money for development here, and put money and economic growth into the economy. And I think maybe to speak just a little bit to Ken Fisher's point, I think you can do that and still remain your own community. That's what you have planners for here. That's why we have a city government. That's why we have county government. You can do that and continue to plan to be that smaller community. But you have to have economic vitality, or you're just never going to be able to get any of your programs done. You're never going to be able to support your education. And to do that, you have to have both strong economic growth from your organic businesses and also to attract new growth in new businesses. So,
a quick comment on my part is that, for example, the reason we have the traffic is because folks live in Vancouver and Clark County and work in Portland, or vice versa, a smaller portion. So the businesses that are already here, they have to deal with this, and of course they want to improve the situation. But if one of our jobs in this community is to bring new businesses into this community, that is not a good sign, because what would happen is that any new CEO, any new businesses, they're going to look at the current situation. They say, you guys even cannot solve your own problem here with the traffic that you have. How am I as a new business going to come in this community, and how are you going to help me? So it's not really a good situation as we're dealing with this bridge situation for getting future businesses and new companies that are not currently located in Vancouver, bringing them to Clark County.
Do the others want to take a stab at that? No? Okay. Okay, good.
Can I bring up one more point?
Sure.
Give me a mic and I'll be in trouble, right? Fisher brought up an interesting point that he didn't mean to bring up, that I hear a lot too. And if you remember what he said, he was looking here for a place to live. He said his wife drove around and she was checking out, where do we want to live? Do not underestimate the importance of having a community that the spouse and the family wants to live in. I don't care whether it makes economic sense from a business perspective. If the families don't want to live there, they're not going to relocate there. Or if they are, you're not going to want to live in that community that those businesses are going to want to be in. We can't forget about the importance of developing the community as a great place to live and great neighborhoods, great schools. We have all the great foundations for that, but that's probably the second biggest thing I hear is where do I want to live and where would my family live? And it's so important, and it never gets a lot of press. It's always about the business, all about the workers, all about the education. But the reality is you have to have a place where those people are going to want to live. Because if you can't convince the executives and their families to relocate their business, or that they should live there, they're not likely going to move their business there either.
Thank you, John. Okay, we'll take one more question, and then we're gonna be right up against time. So
this would be for John and Jason regarding employee health plan.
He's asked the three of you.
I'll take a shot at it quickly. Is that we are a kind of a larger employer, so we always have offered benefits to our employees. So at the beginning, we did not see much impact to us, but as basically we are getting to more of the details, we are in a process of analyzing and understanding the impact of it, more of a kind of a long term. So we still do not have a good understanding of it from our perspective, but we're in a process right now.
Yeah, and I would say from Integra's perspective, we've continued to see healthcare premiums rise. A lot of that the business takes on, continues to take on. Some of it we've had to pass to our employees, but we continue to look for ways to mitigate that. As Bryce mentioned, there's some preventative care that we roll out to our employees that are cheap if not free, just to continue to reduce those premiums as we go.
From our standpoint, we still offer, full package health care. I mean, we pay for all the health care for our employees. It's getting to be more and more difficult. The prices continue to go up. The challenge for us is to find markets that can support our price points, of which that's part of the package. We're also very interested in looking at more innovative ways to kind of give everybody the same sort of benefit, if you will, under different mixes of healthcare options. I think some new areas that are coming out in regards to those are exciting, and I think we'll have to move to some of those areas. But at least right now, we're focusing on improving our efficiency to try to make up some of those gains that healthcare will start taking away from. We're in a pretty price-sensitive business, so that's what we're doing.
Great, thank you. Thank you all very much for coming today. I'd like to just thank this wonderful panel. They did a great job. So. And I'd also like to thank the Columbian for putting this together every year. They also do an excellent job, and I appreciate the opportunity to have this kind of a community event where we all get together and talk about what's important to our community around our economy. So thank you, Columbian. And lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't give just a little plug for my organization, the Workforce Development Council. Many of you may not understand who we are or what we do, but I'll just say it in a nutshell. We help employees gain the skills that they need to be successful in getting jobs with these organizations and other companies in our community. And we help the companies find the right talent at the right time for them. So if you are a company, you're looking for talent, please let us know. If you are a potential job seeker and you look for some other skills, let us know that too, and we'll try to make a great match for you. And before I leave that, let me just introduce two employees of ours who are in the room. Leanne Lawrence, who deals with manufacturing and information technology businesses, and Julia Maglione, who is our communications director. So thank you all again. I appreciate you all being here. Thanks very much. Take care. Have a good day.